Elite performance comes from immersive presence. You're not in the past. You're not even 2 seconds into the future. You're exactly where you are right now, and you're immersed in the endeavor, whether you're in the assessment phase, the rehearsal phase, the visualization phase, the commitment phase, the execution phase, or the assessment phase of after the shot. Immersive presence is not depressed. Depression occurs from thinking in the past. Immersive presence is not anxious because anxiety is something that's about to happen. Immersive presence is now.
Welcome to The Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. I'm your host, Ryan Adams, and my guest today is Virgil Herring. Virgil is an award-winning PGA professional who's coached 2 PGA Tour winners, 6 national champions, and he's helped over 250 junior golfers earn over $11 million in scholarships. Virgil is a former Golf Channel Academy teacher. He's a 3-time best-selling author and the host of 2 fantastic podcasts, On the Verge and Elevated. Virgil's a TEDx speaker and created the Get a Pair system on how to win. Virgil, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation and see where we can go here. It's going to be fun.
Love it. So I'm going to start right at kind of the beginning, because so many of our listeners that are listening to the podcast and watching it as well, they have junior golfers. They have kids that are excited about golf at varying stages. They're either first being introduced to golf or they're already kind of in the competitive landscape. So you have a lot of experience helping kids not only learn about the game of golf, but also get scholarships and go into become champions. So I want to start just at the very beginning. What do you see? Like when a kid comes in with a parent, do you have a kind of a sixth sense already of whether or not they have a high probability of being successful? Like do you have enough experience now where you can kind of sniff out, how well a kid's going to be later in their career?
Yeah, I would say that the number one indicator is speed, right? So if somebody's able to move their body fast, that means they're coordinated, strong, have fast twitch muscles. And everything in life, whether you're talking business or sport, the fastest win. They're the most dominant. So my job is to encourage their best speed first, and then bend that speed onto what I call plane, onto the swing plane. And then now that's as fast as they can swing on balance. Now we're looking for predictability of distance and curvature. Do they know that their 7-iron goes 160 and generally draws to the left 15 feet? If you know how far you can carry the golf ball and you know how much it's going to curve in one direction or the other, you can mathematically disassemble a golf course. So my job is to gain speed function, put it onto the plane, get you your numbers and yardages and predictability features, and then get you to compete. And then the golf course tells us where we are. You know, what happened? Well, I 3-putted 9 times and I hit 2 drivers out of bounds. Okay, well, we got to address that putting for sure. And let's figure out the driver as well. The golf course tells us everything. Golf is the only sport that I can think of in which we don't practice where we play. So at the end of the day, most people struggle with, they practice well, they hit ball well on the driving range, and they get on the golf course, and it's a very different conversation. So my job is to help them navigate that. And even though I'm widely recognized as the swing guy, I'm really more the mental guy. And because the number one key is, once you get muscle memory and myelin, once it's formed, you can't really lose it unless you have an opiate addiction or you get struck by lightning or get electrocuted. Those are the only 2 things that interfere with muscle memory. My job is to figure out what is interfering with the transmission from the cerebellum to the muscle. And if I can identify that, which is probably the most fascinating and fun part of my job, I get people to compete at the highest level they can. And what I stress as a business coach, not just a golf coach, but as a business coach, is if you're striving to be the greatest in the world, that's a lonely place. But if you're striving to be the best that you can be every day, 1% better, that's your journey. And who is to say who's the greatest in the world? Because most of the time that's subjective anyway. You're trying to be the best version of yourself. And a lot of people get caught up trying to be the next Tiger Woods, the next Michael Jordan, next Tom Brady, who had whatever you want to be. But they lose the joy in being the best version of themselves. And ultimately, that's one of the big interference patterns that I see from players is they're They're not interested in being the best version of themselves. They're only interested in being in the greatest of all time. And that's not up to them.
There's so much to unpack here, Virgil. Okay, in your TEDx talk, which was awesome, you had a pretty impactful statement, and you said there's a systemic complacency going throughout the country and basically the world right now. I'm assuming that's kind of what you're talking about with the kids not wanting to get that 1% better or get the best out of themselves. Is there that complacency, or is there something else that you've learned is more of the culprit?
Well, I think that in the world we live in today, it's never been easier to do things. So as soon as things get difficult, more people are apt to pull away because this sucks. What they don't understand is that accomplishment derives from overcoming struggle. And the first place I was like, would you feel great about yourself if you were playing a 4-year-old in the national tic-tac-toe championship and you absolutely murdered him 11-0? Would you feel great about it? No, you would not. But if you play golf against somebody who has a reputation of being better than you, that you've never met before, and you focus on yourself to the best of your ability, and you work through your nerves, and you work through the pressure, and you work through all the anxieties of what ifs, and come out the other side victorious, that feels awesome. But another place that I try to help kids understand is like, when I was a teenager, when you were a teenager, when it came to writing a book report or a thesis, it was called get out as many encyclopedias as possible. You're searching and cross-referencing across a variety of books, never knowing where the information is. You just got to keep reading until you find it. And you kids today can, hey, Siri, can you do this for me? And boom, it happens just like that. So it's not difficult to do things. And most kids are judged by their schoolwork early in their life. It's never been easier to make good grades, ever. Except what are we seeing? More kids are making less good grades because they don't have any work ethic because it's too easy. And as soon as it gets hard, they're quick to quit. And that to me is probably the thing that drives me the most crazy, is that the parents are just as guilty. They're playing a role in this. Many parents are trying to keep their kids safe, protect them from the pain of failure, loss, etc. And they're forgetting that the whole reason why they became successful in their life is because they learned to overcome the obstacles, the dissatisfactions, the anxieties, the pressures, and failures of their life and persevered through them. We're trying to create an environment that has no perseverance, no grit, no resiliency. So what do we expect them to do when things get tough? We expect them, that will mean they're going to quit because they don't know how to keep fighting. And I think that probably is the scariest place for our country to be, and probably it's systemically across the world.
One of the most profound books that I read when my wife was first pregnant, when I was kind of determined to become intentional as a parent and be like, listen, I really want to make sure I get this right. And I stumbled across 2 books. One was Peak by Anders Ericsson, and the other one was Grit by, I think it's Angela
Duckworth. Yeah.
Duckworth, thank you. And when you mentioned myelin and when you mentioned grit and perseverance, all these things as being a huge indicator of success, aside from the speed test, which I want to get into. I want to get more into that in a second. But understanding, I didn't realize how important grit actually was, because it is the indicator. It's like, are you willing to stick through itness? Are you willing to, when you hit that obstacle, are you willing to keep going? And oftentimes it seems like the people that are most successful are the ones that are working harder and are willing to just do what other people are not willing to do. Is this what you've seen as well, where it's like it is the grit? And then on a side note, how as a parent in this helicopter comfort participation trophies for everybody type culture that we live in, very protected, how do we instill grit, or how do we teach grit into our kids?
Well, one, if you're fortunate, this is a big if you're fortunate enough to be in an endeavor, whatever that is, guitar, piano, baseball, softball, soccer, whatever, you name the sport, you name the activity. If you're lucky enough to have this little tingle inside of you that this is fun and I want to get good at it, like, I hope I can do this. It creates that level of hope. Well, now you've created the environment of striving for excellence, learning how to get better, putting it to the test, certain degree of failure, still love it, keep wanting to get better. And that's where the real trick is that if there's no passion, if there's no love for something, there will be no grit. And what I mean by that is that there are going to be plenty of things, kids out there, there are going to be plenty of things in your adult life that won't be fun, and you have to have grit. But when you're a kid, you're learning the lessons of life through games and activities so that you can steel your resolve at 14, like playing the piano or playing golf or baseball or whatever it is. And it doesn't go well. Your best effort that day doesn't go well. You get back up because it's a game. And you're like, I'm going to get better tomorrow. You can pout a little bit because everybody wants to do well. Your best wasn't good today. We're going to do better tomorrow. That is key because it starts with a passion. But what ends up happening is so many people are so numb, like they don't do anything with passion. They're just there soaking up oxygen, and that's about it. And it's really sad to watch that there's no passion in some kids' lives. So there's no way to have grit and perseverance because they don't have any reason to want to fight.
And the constant dopamine hits that happen with technology and video games, I mean, they don't help because it would be like eating junk food all day, every day. It tastes good, so and you get that little instant gratification. Why would you suffer? Which oftentimes grit is a certain form of suffering where you actually have to suffer through it a little bit, like working out. You have to go through a certain amount of pain to get better. So what do we do? So there's a dad or a mom listening to this right now, and they know that what you're saying is true, 100%. Like there's no doubt. But then they're looking over and they're seeing little Johnny or little Sally playing Fortnite or staying inside and not getting outside. What do we do? How do we encourage that little bit of passion or kind of stoke that flame in them to allow them to see their passion and therefore learn grit and become a successful adult?
Well, I would say that if this is the case, I think what you'd see largely, not always, but largely, this starts with the parenting being too lenient. The parents didn't want to parent. Everybody's working now. When I was growing up, my mom didn't work. Probably how much the stay-at-home percentage of mothers in the 70s and 80s were way higher than it is today. So both parents are gassed and exhausted when they come home. And instead of parenting, which is not an easy job, they're just like, here's the iPad, leave me alone. I need to cook dinner, get ready for this, get ready for that. And it's easy for the parent. It all started with a parental decision. If you ask me what the answer is, you take away the Fortnite, you take away the gaming system for 60 days and create a new habit. Now parents are going to freak out with that thought because they don't want to have to deal with what's going to be the withdrawal symptoms of a dopamine addict. But what are you here for? Are you here to be a good parent and bring the best out of your kids? Are you actually going to be creating an addict in life? And some people don't want to hear that. And that's a very difficult thing to hear when you're a mother or a father who you're literally working 70, 80 hours a week, and that's all you have. But as David Goggins would say, as soon as you feel like you've exhausted all that you have, there's still another 60%, and that's proven. So you just have to find it within yourself. So if you can't demonstrate it yourself, why would you think your kids are going to do it? So it all starts with you, parent.
So what I'm hearing then is it's the modeling aspect where if as a parent, if we can model the behavior and the type of person that we want our child to be, it's the old, do as I say, not as I do, like the opposite.
Yep.
It seems like that is at least a large part of the answer.
Well, the number one way children learn is mirroring.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, if what they see is ambivalence, exhaustion, the easiest way out of situations, they don't know that that's not the best way. Why would mom or dad or both be doing that? It's the only way to do it. This is how we have to do it. And so at the end of the day, their version of being the best they can be is getting to level 10 in Fortnite. Wow, I'm a champion, Well, what is that actually doing for them? It's not really doing anything for them. And this generation is going to learn a very brutal lesson coming out of college, if they even go to college, is that the real world does not care about your feelings. And as soon as this current 13-year-old gets to be 25 and doesn't know how to acclimate himself in the real world, and the real world throws a Mike Tyson haymaker right in the face, they're not getting up, and they're gonna want to go live in mommy's basement because that's too hard. And unfortunately, people are trying to run from struggle, and they need to be more like a bison instead of a cow, run into the storm, not away from the storm, because that's the only way you're going to figure it out. And this is a very trying time for a lot of countries, but this is definitely one for ours for sure.
Virgil dropping truth bombs here. Okay. I've got a 2-year-old that I'm going to give to Uncle Virgil. And I say, Uncle Virgil, you help shape this young guy into a champion golfer because he loves golf. He loves all sports. He's athletic. What would be, let's just talk in sports in general, and then maybe go more specific to golf. But what would be the key things that from a mental aspect and a physical aspect you'd want to instill in this tiny little human that is just looking to mirror and kind of is a blank slate?
Okay, so I'll just use golf because this is what I did for my kids.
Love it.
I took them on the golf cart, and we had fun. If they didn't want to hit a ball, I'd let them drive the cart. They love driving the cart, and they feel big, they feel important, and they stop at my ball, and then they watch me perform the act. And we repeat that process for 9 holes. We don't push 18. And sometimes, and my kids were good enough that they were able to stay at 9 holes. I don't ever remember having to quit through 5 because they got bored. But if you allow them to feel like they're having fun, even if it starts with just driving the cart, then once you get a golf club in their hand and they have fun just whacking the ball, it doesn't make a difference if it goes straight or not. If they find general interest in hitting the ball, their golf swing is going to bizarrely mimic yours. It's pretty interesting. So if you got a good golf swing, they're going to mimic it and also going to have a good golf swing. And the real challenge at this point is to in Earl Woods' book that he wrote about Tiger, he said that when he played with Tiger early in his life, when Tiger was 4 and 5, if Earl played the first hole with a driver and a 9-iron, he would figure out how far Tiger needed to play so that he hit driver 9-iron, so that he felt like his son was playing the same golf course as his dad. So then it felt fair. As soon as it felt fair, they felt like they could compete. And when the child, struggled, obviously they don't have much experience, you encourage them, you drop another ball down, give them another chance. At the end of the day, fun is critical. And I say, this is one of my speech talks, and it was in my TED talk. We have to move from I hope I can to I believe I can until I know I can. And how do we do that? Hope comes from starting something that is fun and stokes a passion inside of you that makes you curious about how to become as good as you can be. When you believe you can do something, you've learned how to do it right. When you learn how to do it right, you can win from there. But the difference is when you know you can do it, you have now done it until you can't do it wrong. And that comes in phases. And when a lot of people get to the I believe part, a lot of people can hit the shots that are required to be a great golfer. And it's like I said, sometimes they win. Not always, but sometimes they win. It gives them a false hope. But the people who take it to the next level are the ones that work so hard in refining their motion that they can't do it wrong. And that is the trick in any endeavor that we have, is find a passion, be curious, and chase your best version of yourself until you can learn how to do it right. Once you learn how to do it right, you'll get to a crossroad. Do I really see myself wanting to dig in, or do I see myself pretty satisfied? But at the end of the day, let's just say you choose to not try to be the best golfer you can be. You've at least learned the fundamentals to get to that crossroad, because something you're going to do in your life is going to make you want to keep going. But the things we learn in sport and activities and arts are the perseverance and how to be able to fail and get back up and learn these exercises at a young age until we do find that one thing that makes us want to go from I believe I can do it until I know I can do it. And in my opinion, that's the most important thing in life.
I love it. There's no other sport or activity that I've ever found that mirrors more of the ups and downs of life and all of the skills and the mental strength and everything that you would need to, as you mentioned, be successful in life. It's on the golf course. It's all within. It's a microcosm that 18 holes. That's it. Like that's if you can master yourself on the golf course. And I often say, I'm like, if you ever want to get a little glimpse of the inner workings of a human, go golfing with them and see how they talk to themselves. See how they react with adversity. See how they like everything you need to learn about that human and how successful, like you can extrapolate from that of how successful they're going to be. You see how they golf, and I seem to have noticed that. Have you seen that as well?
And that's largely my new objective in coaching is that I've partnered up with Dave Meltzer, and Dave Meltzer is, for those people who don't know, is Jerry Maguire from the movie Jerry Maguire. He's the most successful sports agent of all time, and he ran Lee Steinberg's agency, right? So he's partnered up with me, and we are together doing business coaching on the golf course, and we're allowing the golf course to create very similar situations emotionally when people fail or struggle. And we allow a game, which we stopped doing at age 18, almost always. We stopped playing games at age 18 because it's time to go to college and go to the real world. And we forget all the fun that can be learned through a game. And because golf's the greatest of them all at this, in my opinion, I can teach them how to be a better golfer, relate the struggle to something that they're struggling with, whether it be family, business, life, etc. And then they can remember how they've persevered in the past through something that was fun. Well, this isn't fun, Virgil. Right now, my life isn't fun. Correct. But you have to persevere through it anyway. You don't have a choice. You can't just opt out of life. So you're going to have to fight through it. So how many times in a round in your life have you shot 50 on the front and we're about ready to quit and you shoot 37 on the back and you can't wait to play again? At the end of the day, that's what people have to remember is sometimes we're shooting 50 on the front in life and sometimes we're shooting 37 on the front in life. And that is the parallels. And we're having such great success being able to bring 12 people in and do this on golf course coaching where we take the fundamentals of what it takes to be great at anything, use the golf course as our playground. And in the process of that 2 hour and a half, 9-hole event or 18-hole event where it's 5, people experience all of the characteristics of greatness that are required, and they can tangibly touch it and begin to apply it in a fun way to all of their struggles in life, which ultimately lead to new accomplishments. And that's really the most fun part of the newest version of my career is taking people and using the game to not just get better at golf, but to use golf as a springboard to get better in their life.
Virgil, I can hear the thousands of people listening right now and being like, okay, that sounds amazing. Sign me up. Okay, we got to tell. So what's the website? What's the name? Because that really, from anybody that's in business or just wants to get better at life, that sounds like the ultimate experience. How can people find out more about that?
Well, so basically right now, Dave and I are we just send me a direct message, either through text message or email. So my cell is 615-579-5190. My email is virgilherring1@icloud.com, or my Instagram is virgil.herring. And the reason why it's not necessarily a website right now is because we need to customize it to what you need. So when I'm doing it, I don't want to have you create what you think. I need to talk with you and tell me what's going on so that we can customize this event for you, your team, however it needs to be done for you. Because at the end of the day, the possibilities are endlessly gigantic. And to be able to put it all on a website seems like a waste of time. Call me and we create the situation and we make it customized for you, because at the end of the day, you're asking to be helped. Well, instead of us trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, we'd like to find out that you're a rectangle and build a rectangular hole for us to push it through. So the best way to do this is to contact me directly, because then we can create it. And now you are a part of this. And that's the most important part of it, is that if it's your part too, you're invested. And when you're invested, it makes a huge difference in the quality of the outcome. And it has to start in here. You got to visualize it before you can actually make it happen. So that's what I'd recommend people doing, is just reach out to me, because this is really, we've had so much success, and we just believe, Dave and I believe, that at the end of the day, the most important part of it is the human connection. Like my job is to hear from you, and then you hear back from me, and we create a rapport and a relationship through your struggles. And that rapport gains trust, and the trust gains the opportunity for you to explore the difficulties of life while playing a game and be a kid again. How many memes do we have to watch on Instagram about being a kid again? Where is that? That is lost because we stopped playing games at age 18.
Yeah, too much stress, too much pressure, and I don't think that there's anybody that would have an issue with directly reaching out to you. In fact, that's a rarity, is the fact that you could co-create your experience by having a direct line directly to you. So that's immensely valuable. I'm going to go back to the very first thing that we talked about, which is speed in kids. And when you recognize that someone has speed and that natural balance and athleticism, that you think that is one of the biggest indicators of future success in that young golfer. Can you talk about kind of what age we're talking about that you're seeing the speed, and what a parent can do to kind of foster that type of speed in like the golf swing?
Oh man, I'd probably say I could see it at 5 or 7, probably 5 for girls, 7 for boys. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, I'm putting them in a proper setup position. I'm taking their backswing back so that their frail, their lead shoulder, so for a golfer, their left shoulder gets over their right knee. And then I'm going to ask them to swing to a balanced finish position with your right shoulder facing a target. And we're just going to keep repeating that. And when it's faster and faster and faster until they lose their balance. And I always say the speed limit sign on your golf swing is called balance. It's like the Autobahn. They're the only thing that is too fast is when you wreck, when you lose your balance. So I want you to go as fast as you can. And I train speed first. I want it to be as fast as possible. There are so many devices out there for speed training. It'd be easier served to go to YouTube and find 5 different things, and then maybe ask around some other families who play golf, and their kid looks like they're swinging the way you'd like your kid to swing, and ask what they're doing. But there are so many, like that's the stack system. That is the best one, but they probably have to be 10 or 11 to do it. And that's not too late. You want to really get a girl to be training for speed at 12 and boy at 14. Anything before that, not sure that it's that big of a deal outside of what would be considered natural.
What's your take on the importance of competition? And how early would you be introducing, like working on the mental side of the game now? How important is it to immerse our kids in competition? Do you think that there should be a clear winner or a loser? I don't want to get you in trouble here in the current politically correct landscape that we're in, but like just talk about competition and the age and the importance that you've seen in putting your kid in competition early.
I'll say this. First of all, I don't care what anybody thinks about this statement, because at the end of the day, life is a competition. You're competing every day, no matter what it is that you're doing. And if you're going to think that that's not good for your kid, you are so grossly mistaken. That you can say what you want about me, but there's no way you can prove to me that your life isn't competing every day. So hiding that is a disaster. I think more families struggle with too much competition. They get their kids playing too much, they get burnt out. I think learning how to balance the appropriate amount of competition and then working on competency to gain confidence to go back and compete again. It's like the 3 C's. You work on your competency to increase your confidence so that you can compete. The competition clearly indicates what you have to get more confident at so that you can raise your confidence, that you can compete again. It's a cycle that you never get off of. And as soon as you figure out how to properly assess the outcomes of your competition, you're so confident because you've built a system, a process that you can cling to that the greatest of all time do, no matter if we're talking about Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or we're talking about Vince Lombardi, Phil Jackson, Coach K, Nick Saban, Joe Paterno, who cares? All the greatest coaches, all the greatest leaders, and no matter what we're talking about, they do the exact same things. They just change some words around to make it relevant to the task. But it's just that. So you have to compete, learning how to balance competition so that they can get their, the body restored, get their brain restored, and get back in the heat again is super imperative. But you have to compete. You have to compete. And I don't have a problem if they hand out a 10th place trophy if everybody's competing. I mean, in some ways, there's nothing wrong with a 10th place trophy as long as the champion is being celebrated, as long as it's clear. And that's what makes golf so interesting. It's like if you're in a 16-team basketball competition and you get a 16th place trophy, I'm not sure about that. But if you're playing individual sport and you went out there and you played the exact same amount of holes as everybody else and you finished 10th, man, on the PGA Tour, that 10th place finish is worth like $650,000. That's not a bad day at the office. And like, to me, it's more about celebrating your best while also celebrating the best. In many ways, I want to compete. I want to do the best that I can do. And if my best isn't good enough that day, I'm completely fine with it because that gives me the opportunity to shake the hand of the person that beat me today. And that gives me an opportunity to learn. But if I have to look in the mirror to see who beat me, that's the worst feeling in the world, is you beating yourself. So one of my mantras is we're going to learn how to shake the hand of the person that beats us, not look in the mirror to see who beat us. Because if we can do that, every loss is a learn and every victory is well deserved.
I love that. I know that the mental side is something that you focus on a lot. So there's been a bunch of really good insights on the mental side. What else maybe that we haven't touched on yet that you've seen that kind of separates the best of the best, be it either in the collegiate level, the junior level, or the professional level from the rest on specifically the mental side?
Wow, this is a great question. Okay. So the first thing is the self-talk. Positive self-talk and learning how to talk to yourself is possibly the most incredible difference between the very best players I've ever coached and the next tier of players. Is that I believe our culture has created a situation that if you don't win or you don't hit a bad shot, the child or the player needs to show a level of disgust in their output so that mom or dad thinks that they're trying.
Interesting.
And so there's this constant battle between their best and how it's perceived, and it creates a big problem. Well, what I mean by that is like Brent Snedeker is the greatest player I've ever coached personally. He ascended to number 6 in the world. He's won $80+ million on the tour and won 10 times. Miraculous. But what made him so special is that it didn't make a difference how bad he was playing the whole day. Every time he set up over a shot, he knew that he was going to do it this time. He was unfazed by his misses. He kept believing. His self-talk was, I am going to, I will, I am going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. It was so positive and affirmative, and it built confidence and he was so unfazed by his failure. So the difference, in my opinion, from me being a coach versus the player, that mindset is what I have when I'm coaching golf or when I'm coaching business people. I don't ever have anything negative to say. I'm always positive. I believe in myself that I'm going to find the answer. Even if I haven't found it yet, I know I'm going to find it. When I was on playing golf, I grew up in a situation where if I didn't win, I was ridiculed pretty heavily. And if I didn't perform the way I was supposed to, I was ridiculed pretty heavily. So my defense mechanism early in my childhood was to, if I didn't do something, I struck out or I popped up or I missed a 3-point shot. I showed anger and disgust because I felt like the people that were watching me that were supposed to love on me were disappointed in me. I see that a lot in every sport, in every way, shape, and form. Now, that doesn't mean that's what they were doing, but that's what I felt. So now that I'm a dad and I've witnessed many dads, including my own, I try to sit down with the parents early in our relationship. And I'm like, listen, there's going to be this time that's going to get really difficult. And what I mean by that is this: you're going to be out there, little Stevie, and you're going to be trying to play the very best golf you can play. And it's not going to be going well. Your parents, you have no idea how much a parent loves you until you become a parent yourself. What parents are going to want to try to do is either A, help you stop making the mistake they can see, or remind you of things that have worked in the past, or critique something to help, because they can't stand to watch their child struggle. It's a very difficult thing to do. But parent, please listen to this. Your child only hears, you don't think I'm trying. You don't think I'm doing good enough. I can tell you this: I have never in my life competed and not given everything I had, even when I was struggling. I didn't seem to have anything. I was giving everything I had. And the ones that are the most painful are the ones where you give everything you got at something and it's not good enough. And then on top of that, you get compounded hammering from the people that are supposed to be supporting you because you underachieved to somebody else's expectation. You want to talk about something that'll kill passion and kill joy? Oof. But that is unfortunately what happens. So one of my golden rules for parents is you can't discuss what happened in today's round for a minimum of 30 minutes, and try your best to let them come to you over anything. Obviously, if there's behaviors just like breaking clubs or, radical swearing or stuff like that, that's no good. That's a different point. But if your kid's out there being well behaved, but just literally golf is pounding them into the dirt today, they're not quitting. They're not trying to suck. They're giving everything they have, and they don't know what to do different. And you're compounding on with trying to help only makes it sound like you don't think they're good enough or trying enough. And it is a devastator for people.
I believe it. Is there a fine balance between kind of instilling that, for lack of a better word, that killer instinct, that competitiveness in a child to actually, like, to not be afraid, almost a growth mindset, to not be afraid of failing and to go after it and to give it your all without holding anything back, while also being very, to what you just talked about, holding completely back and being like, you know what, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna allow space and silence, and then we're just gonna be positive and reinforce the work ethic later. Like, is there a way to do both?
Oh, absolutely there is. Now, each person has different tolerances, right? So this is like a math problem with variables in it.
Hmm.
I have been coaching golf for a very long time. I have also watched thousands of moms and dads be great and fail. So I get a free test every day of watching the best do it and the worst do it. So I get called Job a lot. Why do you have so much patience? I don't know if I have patience. Is that I understand that they're giving me the best that they have. My job is to support and keep walking through the fire with them. I will not make I won't be throwing my hat. I won't exasperate myself if something doesn't go good. I will be stoic. I'll obviously cheer them on if they hit a great shot, but I will not negatively impact their round by emotionally reacting to something that doesn't happen positively. I am, I'm like so stoic and just like cruising along right there with them. And then after they're done, I know that we're not talking about the round. We're going to talk about, hey, what do you want to eat? Where do you want to go tonight? I'm doing something to create a conversation that detaches them from the outcome. And we can come back and revisit it again later. I know I'm unique in a situation because I am a coach. Most parents aren't a coach. I'm very fortunate because I am. So I know a lot of things that other people don't know when it comes to this. But at the end of the day, I'm a dad too. And I see sometimes my kids are struggling. I'm like, God, if I could just talk to them for 5 minutes, it'd be so much easier. But they have to go through this on their own because it is way better for them to experience it and fail and then learn than to be shown how to do it differently, because all they're going to hear is, you don't think I'm trying hard enough. And that to me is the dance. The dance is you have to get really good at imagining if you were playing, what would you like to have happen if you set up over a par 3 7-iron, all over water, you go through your pre-shot routine beautifully, you step up there, you hit it really solid, you're posing, and it hits the rocks and bounces back in the water. You fell 1 yard away from a perfect shot, and now you're going to make a double bogey at least because now you got to hit another one. How would you like to be treated if that was you? Would you like to see like like an exasperated parent look, a hat throw, something negative, or would you rather just like to see your dad or your mother just stand there and wait for you to do it again? I always say, like, one of the golden rules is like, what would you like to have happen to you if you were given your best and it didn't work out? Do you think you'd be benefited by having support, or do you think you'd be benefited by somebody piling on? I'll let you all figure that out for yourself. But at the end of the day, the answer is support. Support is what most people want. And that's what I would be asking you to try to cultivate out of yourself, because I can guarantee you that being a golf parent is brutal. Because if your son or daughter gets off to a terrible start and it's a 5-hour baton death march, there's hardly anything more excruciating than watching your child struggle for 5 hours. Heck, basketball games usually last an hour and 10 minutes, and football games last 2 hours and 20. But golf can be 5-6 hours of brutality. So it's exasperating for everybody. But you have to learn how to visualize, if you were going through it, what would you like to have?
Okay, so we're talking about, and rightly so, how to handle some of the adversity and the perceived or labeled negatives on the course. There's also a school of thought that when you're praising the positives, that can almost put unnecessary focus on results, and when you're overly praising, like when it's a good shot or things are great, well, then the child is seeking that positive affirmation and always focus on the results. Have you seen that? And if that's the case, how should a parent handle the praise as opposed to the stoic nature when something's not going well?
I haven't seen too many attempts of overpraising. Now, what I mean by that, like, I'm not talking about people praising average or mediocre shots and calling them great. I think that might be the issue that we're speaking of here. But if we're thinking about golf really holistically, we're lucky if we hit 1 or 2 great shots a day, right? So enjoying those and celebrating those, I've never seen too much of that. Now, if you know that somebody hit a shot, it wasn't really solid, and you're over there acting as if it was, that looks a little shady. But I have never seen. I think that when you're asking that question about the over positive, I don't really see that in golf. I mean, I bet it's very possible in basketball. If somebody at age 11 or 12 is physically more advantaged, and then because they hit puberty before, and they go 26 for 27 from the floor and score 59 points in a 32-minute game against really nobody that could guard him, maybe that's a possibility. But at the end of the day, I have not seen anybody over pump up really great golf shots, because at the end of the day, that's why we're here. That's what we're practicing. So I would want my players, when they hit a good shot, to be like, that was like me. That's what I do. That's what I prepare for, just like that. And when they don't hit a good golf shot, they're more like, they pause for a second. They don't get emotional. They're like, that was unlike me. What did I feel there? Oh, I didn't transfer my weight properly. I got a little quick from the top. So on the next swing, before I hit the ball, I'm gonna make a couple of practice swings to put that back into my swing. And then put the club back, put the bag on their shoulder and walk to the next shot. But the post shot routine is just as important as the pre shot routine. You got to learn how to react to your shots and react minimally as possible, given the fact that, yes, if you make the winning putt for the Ryder Cup, it's super celebratory. But if you make a 25-foot birdie putt on the fifth hole of the first day of a golf tournament, I'm not so sure we're going crazy over that. But at the end of the day, learning how to react is really great for the emotional system, because if we get too emotional, it flips on the prefrontal cortex. And if the prefrontal cortex gets involved, we are not going to be very good with our muscle motion, because it's going to be trying to parse it, trying to perfect it, because that's what the PFC does. It's trying to protect you from failure. And ultimately it leads to failure because it slows down the natural flow from the cerebellum to the muscle.
Okay, so that's important. I feel like what you just said there. So let me see if I understand it. So if we can encourage a more stoic, less emotional approach to the outcome of a shot, that allows us, for lack of a better word, to stay closer in the zone, or to be able to tap into the part of the brain that is more in control of the actual action, therefore allowing us to continue to play better golf, as opposed to allowing us to get emotional, which then takes us out of the moment into a different part of the brain, which doesn't serve us at all in the golf swing.
All right, so strap on your seatbelt. Here's the high voltage. Here's the high voltage version of elite performance. Elite performance comes from immersive presence. You're not in the past. You're not even 2 seconds into the future. You're exactly where you are right now, and you're immersed in the endeavor, whether you're in the assessment phase, the rehearsal phase, the visualization phase, the commitment phase, the execution phase, or the assessment phase of after the shot. Immersive presence is not depressed. Depression occurs from thinking in the past. Immersive presence is not anxious, because anxiety is something that's about to happen. Immersive presence is now. Science, Stephen Kotler, the king of flow state. Now that Csikszentmihalyi Hyde passed away, Stephen Kotler is the king of flow. Flow state is immersive presence that invites the zone state to occur, and a deeper state of zone is flow state, where it almost feels like time is moving radically slow and radically fast simultaneously. We lose touch of time. Now, what can happen? The brain is designed to keep us safe. Safe physically, safe emotionally, safe mentally. So when we set up over a golf shot with out of bounds left, water to the right, and the fairway seems really narrow, that creates a fear. The fear is, I could make a double bogey, or worse here, I could hit a ball out of bounds or ball into the water. I don't want to do that. What does that do? Prefrontal cortex kicks on. I hear you. We're definitely gonna perfect this. We're gonna take total control over this. As soon as the prefrontal cortex gets involved, it takes the bits of information that are firing from the cerebellum, which is where myelin is stored. Where the information, all your muscle memory is stored. So that when it fires the impulses to the myelin, which is wrapped around the muscles, it's so refined, it's hard to mess it up. But if the prefrontal cortex gets involved, it slows down that transmission literally 1,000,000 fold. That's not a joke. It's like when the prefrontal cortex is off and you're present and you're just moving, you're getting about 6 billion bits per second of information flowing from the cerebellum to the muscles. As soon as that PFC kicks on, it's about 12,500. Think about that. That's like one's going, a Ferrari going down the highway as fast as it can go, and the other one's this turtle coming across the street, okay? We have to do everything we can to keep the prefrontal cortex not engaged while competing. Well, how do we do that, coach? This is a great trick. You have to give your prefrontal cortex a task. So counting is one of the greatest things I've ever seen happen. So I've learned a lot from Stephen Yellen, who might be the greatest sports coach on how the brain works. I've seen Travis Fox, who's maybe the greatest hypnotherapist for sport. Steve Ring is my own personal hypnotherapist, and he doesn't play golf, so we've used a lot of Travis Fox's stuff to incorporate it. Now he is extraordinary at it as well. If you give your brain something to do, so mine's like, and I will do it in like a cadence, and I learn what my cadence is because I'll walk for 15 seconds and count my steps, multiply that by 4, and that's my cadence. So if I take 14 steps in 15 seconds, I will have a 56 beat on a metronome. And I will then start to count by the ticks. It'll be like 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. And I'm doing that as I'm actually visualizing, okay, I'm 193 yards, it's a 5-iron. I'm going to aim it at that bunker and let it fade to the left. And then I visualize myself doing it. Then I rehearse the motion required all at the exact same time I'm doing that. I'm still counting 7, 8, 9.
Why are you counting at 7, 8, 9 instead of 1, 2, 3 or 10, 9, 8?
9 has a similar sound to Om, which is very close to the Buddhist meditative sound that knocks you into meditation. So it allows me to hack a code, right? 1, 2, 3. 3 is a pretty
John.
is yes. Right. So you're looking for things that end in N or M. So I use 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9. So now when I'm doing all of these things, I'm still counting. So my brain, my prefrontal cortex cannot get involved in changing my golf swing or trying to perfect it because it's got a job to do. It's got to count. And then I hit my shot and I'm still in my mind counting 7, 8, 9. Again, my ball ended up in the bunker. That's strange. Well, I did everything the way I wanted to do it. I forgot. I didn't go through. So I was aimed too far to the right and I kind of felt it, but I didn't back off because I just thought that I was going to be able to pull it off anyway. I'm not doing that next shot. No emotion. Club goes in the bag, put it over my shoulders, walk the next shot. I'm not even thinking. And here's another sneaky hack. You have to learn the tricks of body language because body language is so critical and it creates other things. So why do we hear about the Superman pose? When your chest is up and your eyes are up, you're very external. Everything is out in front of you. It is massive, and you're this tiny little object in this really big world. But if you got your head down, you're this really big thing in this small space. And when you become bigger than the earth, it becomes a lie. You become too egocentric. But when your head's up, chest back and out, everything is out in front of you. The space is so magnificently large compared to you that externalization takes away a lot of the stressors of life. And one of my great favorite lines from Jackie Burke is animals that walk with their head down get eaten. If you play golf with your head down, you're getting eaten. Chest up, eyes up, external. Make yourself as small as you can be because that is really one of the keys to keeping the prefrontal cortex shut off. If you can play golf, you can do anything that is an endeavor, an athletic endeavor, or something that creates muscle motion, guitar, piano, drums, painting, whatever we're talking about. We can keep the prefrontal cortex out of the deal. We're going to do awesome. We're going to play the best that we can play. But it's the fear of failing and whatever that is that engages the wrong part of our brain, slows down the transmission, and we are jacked up. And my job as a coach is to hack your brain, which I have a lot of skill at doing, and get you into that place as quickly as possible so that you trust me that we're here. And then once you learn how to train it like a muscle, you can access that level of greatness forever. And then that becomes what you chase. That's part of your process. And when you follow the process that allows that to occur, you are the best version of yourself. And what more could we ask for? We can't ask for anything more than that. Anything that you do that does not take advantage of all the gifts that God gave you is a slap in the face to the God that gave it to you. And you have to learn how to access all of your talents and get out of your own way to enjoy it. And many people wonder why that doesn't happen. It's because fear overcomes the trust. And it's normal. You just have to learn how to hack it.
I think you just somehow nailed the whole purpose of life, which is to actualize our greatest potential as parents, as men, as women, as children. That's it. That's why we're here, is to actualize the gifts that we're given. The point of why we're here. That's beautiful. I feel like that's a perfect place to end the podcast, but I don't want to end it there because I still have too many questions. But
yeah,
man, you've got so much wisdom here, Virgil. I so appreciate your time. Quick question. That's 7, 8, 9. Would you advise that while you're walking down the fairway as well between shots? Or are you just constantly keeping yourself in that state? Or is that more the 30 seconds before and after the shot?
It's during the shot.
During the shot.
It's like I always say, my counting begins when I put my bag down. Or if you're riding the cart, by the time you stop the cart, you're in. And actually, when I've played my best recently, I've only used the word 9 because it's the one that's closest to home. So like I'm like 9, 9, 9 because it's a little bit more hypnotic than 7, 8, 9. But at first I did it with 7, 8, 9. And then Stephen Yellen
cadence.
That's my own personal cadence. And I think that Stephen Yellen has made it very clear to me that it makes no difference what you're doing, what you're counting, what number you're using, as long as you're doing something that calms the prefrontal cortex, gives it a task. That's the real key. But that you like really what most people struggle with is they focus too much too long. You got to learn how to check in and check out, because some people, like especially kids that are really well-meaning, they feel like they have to stay focused the whole time. And by the time they get to the 7th hole, they are so brain dead because they've literally grinded themselves into the dirt for an hour and 40 minutes. Where the best players in the world, when they're walking with their chest up and their head up and they're looking at the horizon, they're looking at the birds, they're seeing, like if you look in my background, you hear the ocean, you hear the seals in the background, you're taking in life. That's totally different than grind. You have to learn how to check in and check out. I always feel like a punch clock. When I put my bag down, I've checked in. Now I'm doing my routine, hit the shot, check out, walk to the next one, check back in. And then, really, you're only having to be focused for maybe an hour and a half of the 5 hours that you're out there. And the other 3.5 is a night walk.
Yeah, it becomes enjoyable.
Yeah.
You mentioned a hypnotic state and meditation and a few times here. What is your thought then on the importance of breath work, meditation, mindfulness? And I'm very curious actually on the hypnotic or using self-hypnosis or a professional to help get the best game out of you.
Well, I would say it like this. Tiger Woods was hypnotized over 1,000 times by the military's top trauma expert, Dr. Jay Brunza. As soon as I
heard that. Yeah, I heard that too. But so that's verified?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I read this in the book, in Tiger's Mind, or The Mind of Tiger Woods. I think it's The Mind of Tiger Woods by John Indersani. And Dr. Jay Brunza could literally walk up from behind and say 2 words and knock Tiger Woods out. Like, boom, he'd be in a transient state. So I went in search of a hypnotherapist. It took me a while to find one, and Steve Rain is in Nashville here with me, and we are super close. And at the beginning, he didn't know anything about golf, but he knew how to hypnotize people. And I'm the one that showed him what Tiger Woods was doing. And I think it is easily the most important part of what I do, because I use NLP. I sneak up on people with neurolinguistic programming. The way I talk to people shuts them off. They don't know what's happening. They don't know why I'm doing it. They don't understand what's going on. But I can get things to happen only because of how I talk to people. learning how to use your voice to pull people in and out, make them follow you. Because if you learn how to pause correctly and wait for certain ways to deliver the message, you pull people in and then you hit them with it. It's almost like a breath. You pull people in and you pull people out. And when you figure out how to use that talent, it's amazing. But hypnotherapy allows us to create anchors that are performance based. Like Steve will, like, he asked me, what is something that you do before every shot? I always adjust my Velcro on my glove. So he created an anchor that literally now every single time I undo my glove and put it back on, that ripping of the Velcro puts me in the zone.
Hmm.
So Tiger, what did Tiger do? Tiger had it all written on the bottom of his hat. What did Tiger have to do every day? First, next on the tee from Windermere, Florida, Tiger Woods. He'd take off his hat and all of his words be right underneath the cap, put it on. He's in the office. He had an unfair advantage. And as soon as I learned that, a lot of my players at the end of the day, if they don't have the natural gift of it, I call Steve, and Steve has literally transformed so many of my players. It's unbelievable.
Have those Tiger Woods scripts ever been revealed publicly? Do we know what those 1,000 sessions entailed, like what the specific wordings were or what they were focusing on?
I would say the answer is no, as in specifically. There's two books, like the one In the Mind of Tiger, Think Like Tiger, or something like that. And then Raising the Bar by Tim Rosefort, which is also one of the best books I've ever read. He goes into great detail about watching Dr. Brunza right before Tiger won the U.S. Open in 2000 by 15 shots, probably the most dominant victory in any sport we've ever seen. Tiger was struggling really bad. Earl called Jay. Jay showed up, and he walked on the putting green, and literally Tim Rosefort could not believe what he just saw. And he talks about it, but he didn't know how to articulate it for sure. But the skill of hypnosis is the skill of hypnosis. So it really doesn't matter what it is. It would be, what did Tiger want to be able to do? And then Dr. Brunza scripted something so that it became his behavior. That's the most important part of hypnotherapy. Is you go in to see Steve, I'll be like, you need to tell Steve specifically what it is that you want. I want to be able to play golf without fear. Well, we can definitely do that, because we can get you in a state where you play without the fear of the consequence. You know that we're playing an open air sport with a million variables. You could hit the best shot that ever could be hit, and the wind could blow it into the water, blow it out of bounds. Anything can happen in certain scenarios. You got to play golf without any fear of the consequence. And we can put that in. But whatever it is that somebody struggles with, each person has their own unique traumas. Your job, Steve's job would be to hear your desires and craft a session that builds in anchors that allow you to conquer those traumas in light of competition.
Absolutely fascinating. It's you're preaching to my heart, because I read a documentary, and as soon as I found out that there was words that Tiger was being hypnotized, that sent me down a road of just being like, how like it just makes sense, and especially since it was like almost the head of psyops or something for in the Vietnam War. Like it was somebody that really knew what they were doing. That is an unfair advantage, because you were literally taking and you're harnessing the power of the mind, and you're taking away all of the not beneficial aspects, the self-judgments, the fears, all the rest of that. How early, if you could do it again, like how early would you introduce hypnosis into a kid's life?
Probably no earlier than 16.
Really? Why is that?
Because the brain is not fully formed. And Steve gets a little bit on certain things. I would probably say the earliest he's done it is 15, for currently the number one golfer in the country that I teach in class of 2024. And I think he was 15. I'd say 15.
15?
But you have to understand.
Was Tiger younger?
Like,
was he like 4, 5, 6, like something like that? Or you figure that he was?
No, it was. I think he was a teenager as well. But you have to understand, like, what Tiger is what it's really unfair to compare. All right, his dad was an Army Ranger, a Green Beret, so he had special forces training. So he basically was a Green Beret with a golf club. How he handled mental anguish, difficulty, stress, the level of pain. Obviously, when he won the Open in 2008, he wins the U.S. Open on a broken leg and a torn ACL. Every swing was an excruciating, painful event, and he won. And to me, it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Mm.
And where do you get that? You get that from the training from a Green Beret who happens to be your dad. But at the end of the day, and a Buddhist mother. But at the end of the day, what he really wanted to learn how to do was to be able to play at peace, because he was a fiery guy. You know, he played with a lot of passion, and he had to learn how to control the fire in himself. And I'm sure there was a level of judgment from Earl that he was worried about as well. I'm not discounting that as a possibility, but at the end of the day, learning how to cope with pain, struggle, embarrassment, humiliation, fear, and have it all compartmentalized into an anchor is very liberating. It is truly one of the most important things in my life. It's changed my life. And when people are willing to move past the taboo nature of it, because it's really misunderstood, every single person that I've sent said it's the most important thing they've ever done, and thank me very much for encouraging me to do it.
Fascinating. Virgil, thank you for your time. You've shared so much wisdom, so much for the listeners. If people wanted to get in touch with you, I know you earlier you kind of shared your personal cell phone number and some of your handles, but what's the best way that people can kind of get in touch? And if they want to send their kids to kind of go through your program or themselves, and on the business side, what's the best way for people to find you?
So let's just say you can't come to Nashville, or you're not in Nashville. I do FaceTime golf lessons. So it's really, we just FaceTime. And if you can't do FaceTime, we can do Zoom. There's a lot of ways to do it in the post-COVID world. So it's still, the best way is to contact me through my cell phone, which is 615-579-5190, or by my email, which is virgilherring1@icloud.com, and send me your request. What is it that you're wanting from me? Do you need me to get you in touch with a hypnotherapist? Do you need me to work on your golf swing? Do you want to do one of these business masterminds on the golf course? Whatever it is way better for you to contact me, and let's hash it out person to person in a human connection form. The lost art of human connection is what I'm here to fix. I'm going to make this about you, not about some type of digital way. And that's the best way. And I believe that I can be a vessel to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. I'm not the only answer, because largely it's going to come from you, but I'm just a little bit of a vessel of encouragement that gets you from point A to point B.
Speaking of that encouragement, do you have any parting advice or words to those parents that are actively dedicated to raising greatness in their kids?
Yeah, I believe that one of the most important things is that we lose fun too quickly in our life. It becomes about business. And I would try to foster and encourage fun, because fun makes people want to learn. And the more they learn, the more of an expert they get to be. And once you see them on that path to their own personal joy, give them the wheel and sit back and enjoy the ride, and encourage them in the direction that they're wanting to go. I really believe that as soon as you give the keys and the steering wheel to the child, once they've demonstrated they have a passion for it, it becomes their journey. And when it's their journey, magic happens. When it becomes your journey, it becomes a nightmare. And just be mindful. Yes, it's your son or daughter. And yes, you love it like I love mine. Just know that sometimes when your love comes out, it sounds like you don't think I'm good enough. Give them the wheel, give them the keys, and just guide them while they're driving. And it will almost always work out better than you would have ever imagined. It's just that we also fear for the well-being of our kids. And as I would probably end this, we spend a lot of time in fear. We fear a lot of things, but like 99% of the things that go across our mind that are fear-based are largely in our imagination only. So stay out of your own way, stay out of their way, just let it go.